Hi, I'm Marianne DiMascio, and this is Green Scene, and we're here at my garden. Last time I was here in this show was March, and I had snow up to my waist. It's a few short months, only 3 months ago, and we've planted our garden. Things are growing. We have lettuce, we have beans. Unfortunately, something is eating both of them, I think little local rabbits. But we're here in the garden, and we're talking about gardening today, how a group put together a community garden in Hanson. A Boy Scout went and redid it, and it's a beautiful garden. And we'll also go over to see Tina Conte in Gardens to Garnish, where she has an organic farm in Hanson. And I would just like to say that gardening is something that anyone can do. I have right here a few packets of seeds. I had the traditional packets, and then I put some in little Tic Tac containers. It makes it easy to find and work with the seeds. But gardening can be anything as simple as planting one pot and a tomato. It could be digging up part of your yard to garden, and it really is something that anyone can do. And the best part of gardening is that at the end, you get to eat what you've grown. So let's go take a look. Hi, I'm Marianne DiMascio, and this is Green Scene, and here we are in this sea of white tubes and boxes in the Hanson Organic Community Garden. And with me is Jason Nichols. He's a Hanson resident, and he is an Eagle Scout candidate. And guess what? This was his Eagle Scout project. So Jason, welcome.
Thank
How are
you.
you?
How are you doing today?
Good, thanks. How did you get the idea to work on this project?
I actually came here to work with my dad on the Hanson Food Pantry to help them rebuild it. And I found out that this was actually supposed to be a garden, which didn't look much like a garden when I came here. But I ended up talking with Evelyn Golden, and then she turned me onto the project.
Well, that's great. You've made quite a big change in it. I'll just say for background that as part of Green Hanson, we started this community garden about 7 years ago and had a few good years with plots, and then Hanson Hose, a local group with which Evelyn is in charge of, came along and said, we'd like to do a little bit more. So they took it over, started to do more, and it got to this shape it is today because of the work that Jason here has done. So you saw this place, you think, I can do something, and what did you do next? How did you go about making it a real project? What was the next step?
Well, after I got Evelyn's approval, I went to my Eagle Board of Advisors to get approved from them. And then I ended up going to the town selectmen, and then they approved it and let me start work.
That's great. Now, what did you have to do? There's so much that went into this. You have materials, you had money, you needed volunteers. What about the money and materials? How did you go about getting those?
I ended up fundraising a lot for them. I ended up doing multiple fundraisers for them. I ended up getting grants and other things for it.
Okay. And so you had to apply for grants.
Yeah, I had to apply for grants for many different businesses and other things. I also had to, a lot of the stuff was actually donated by discount prices and just given to me for free from many companies.
Yes, you really, I did help a little bit on this project, but there was a lot that went into it. You were coordinating the volunteers and supplies coming. And what about volunteers? How did you end up getting the people here?
I really don't know. They just sort of always, they always just kept showing up for work. Every time I sent out, I would send out emails to my Boy Scout troop, and people would just keep showing up to help out.
Yeah, it has a lot to say about your level of involvement with the community, and also that Evelyn and Green Hanson and others were able to pull in people too, because it really was a community project that you put together. So what I'd like to do is take a look and see what we can learn about how you did this. I'll say first that Evelyn will be on to talk about the type of gardening. It's called square foot gardening, and it's a really great way, especially for beginning gardeners. So we'll talk about that later. But for now, I'd like to just ask, all these materials, how did you put this place together? So we'll take a look down here.
So the first thing that we ended up having to do was, after I talked to PA Landers, is what we had to do is they suggested a sand-like base for the clay that was on the ground. And then we put a cloth a black cloth structure underneath to keep from the weeds to grow up through the ground.
Okay.
And then we put rocks down for it to help it with the drainage, because before the drainage was really bad.
That's right. I can say it used to flood terribly when it rained here because we have a parking lot right there. Okay. And then what about the soil and what was in there?
We actually ended up getting the soil donated by a local landscaping company, and then we put a substance called vermiculite
Sort of eventually get around to
donated by the Whitmore Company.
This is great. Okay. And so the number of plots, I think it's 100 something?
It's 120, I believe.
120 plots. And I think we're almost full last year. And sign-ups are going on for this year. And what about, there's also these couple of plots over here. Could you mention what those are for?
Those are raised garden beds. They are for handicapped people in wheelchairs. So it allows them to still come in and garden with everybody else.
That's great. You know, this is a great, great community thing that you've done, Jason. I myself had a plot last year. I have a garden at my house, but I was so excited about this that I came up and got a couple of plots. And I would say also that the proximity of the food pantry has been a great thing also, because there are a bunch of people who are growing food to supply to the pantry. And one of the hopes that Sharon has, who's at the pantry, is that we'll also have some classes to teach people who are using the food pantry, if they're interested in gardening, how to start a garden and how to make it go. So I really like the idea that these two things are together, and it's a great vision, and it really has made a huge difference that you've been able to do this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm here today with Evelyn Golden at the Hanson Organic Community Garden, and she is the person in charge of making the garden happen and keeping it going well. And Evelyn, you decided to do square foot gardening here. Could you tell us why?
We were doing traditional gardening, working out here, digging, pulling weeds, making our rows, and we were overrun by weeds, and it was very difficult to get the water in and out. So we decided to go with the square foot method because there's less weeding, there is less back breaking work, and you can produce higher volumes of vegetables in a smaller amount of space. So we could use the same space that the town gave us, but get more people up here to grow. And it's great for beginners, so that way people aren't going to get discouraged like they were happening.
That sounds great. I remember that there was a little water problem here, flooding too, and so it's good to see that it is the way it is now.
Yes, Jason did an amazing job. He did his research. They even helped us get water directly in the garden. And even though we're in the midst of a drought and a water ban, we are watering less, and our soil is retaining the water. So even as I'm digging, you'll see that some of the water level, the soil is darker underneath because it is still moist.
That's great. So tell us about this square foot gardening.
So square foot gardening, basically you're working into sections of 12 inches. So typically it works in a bed of 4 by 4 feet, which is this bed here. So we'll go ahead and go down. Okay. And the theory is that you're going to maximize your space. You're going to build with vermiculite, which is this compound here.
The white?
The white, it's a mineral that absorbs water and also aerates the soil. We're going to have peat moss, which is built in, as well as compost. And that keeps all of your nutrients for your plants and retains the water so you have less watering.
Sounds like a magical solution to gardening.
It is almost magical. So I'm going to show you how to plant a couple of things because you have to rethink. You can't do traditional gardening and make that long row. You have to think about where you're going to put your squares.
Okay. And I understand there's a certain amount of seedlings or plants that can go in each square depending on what type of plant.
Exactly. And it's also, you don't need a lot of garden tools. You can use a shovel or a trowel if you want, but I just dig with my hands.
Okay.
So in square foot gardening, you want to put tomato per every 12 inches, which is 1 per square. You can do a nice grid like this, so I kind of find out where my middle point is. And you're going to dig a little bit of a hole. I like to give my tomatoes Epsom salt and eggshells for calcium and phosphate.
I just learned something new. Eggshells for calcium and phosphate and Epsom salt.
Yes.
That's great.
So I bunch up my roots a little bit because it will help them distribute. Put that in and put it in. The deeper you can plant your tomato, the better, because then your root system will establish.
Okay.
And the more roots, the stronger the fruit.
And while you're planting, I'll say a couple of things. There's a Facebook page called the Hanson Hose, because Evelyn started a group called the Hanson Hose. And the great thing I love about that site, I actually did read something about Epsom salt. I know your brother has quite a great knowledge about farming, and he's always putting some great tips on there. So it's a great site, Hanson Hose, Hoes. And that's also, if you're interested in being a part of the community garden, you can go on there and inquire about it, because there still are some spaces. Is that true?
There are limited spaces, but we're can always get people to condense down if there is somebody who really wants to come in, because we don't want to see the space go to waste.
Okay. So now you're planting some flowers. Do you want to say a little bit about that?
So what I've just done, I've planted a red pepper, which is a great companion to tomatoes. Companion planting is so important in square foot gardening, because you want plants that complement each other rather than constantly fighting each other. Like, you don't want to have a plant that sets off nitrates and a plant that hates nitrates together, because they're just going to battle and you're going to have a bad crop.
Okay.
But if you have two plants that one, say, sends out nitrates and the other one absorbs them, then you have a perfect marriage in the garden.
Okay. So what's the example you have here? What are they doing together?
Peppers. So they also love calcium and love phosphorus. So I planted that with the tomato, and they are just going to complement each other and help deter pests and things like that. The marigolds are one of the big duties workers of the garden.
A worker bee.
A worker bee, exactly. They bring in the bees, and they also stop the pests.
Great. And you talked about companion planting. So you mentioned also planting flowers usually with a lot of these?
Yes, because the more flowers you plant, the more bees you're going to bring in. The flowers also help discourage pests like squash bugs if you're planting squash and things like that.
Okay. And what do you have in the garden behind, in the box behind?
So this is our cucumbers, and when you're dealing with a plant like a cucumber that is it takes up a lot of ground space, in a square foot gardening you want to grow vertically. So our cucumbers are 2 per square, and basically as they start to grow and send out their little trails, they will grow up and grab the trellis, and you virtually don't even have to train it. It will just grow itself, and it will take over the entire trellis, and your cucumber crop will just hang and you can pick it.
How perfect. So one of the other things about this square foot gardening is that you can grow a lot in a small amount of space.
Exactly. So green beans are like my favorite example, because in traditional gardening you have to plant a green bean every 2 inches. So if you do, say, a row 6 inches and you're doing one every 2 inches, you're only getting 6 beans. In square foot gardening, you can do 9 per square.
9 per little square.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I wanted to wrap up by just asking if there's anything else you'd like to say about the garden or square foot gardening.
If you're interested in the gardening, look me up on Facebook under the Hanson Hose page, or you can IM me at Evelyn Golden.
That's great. Thanks so much, and can't wait for my garden this year. I have one at home, but I enjoy coming up here. And I mentioned the food pantry in the earlier part of the show, and I also remembered that you were going to do a short something for people who are just starting gardening. Is that coming up soon,
Yes,
or it will
it'll
be
this Saturday, but I can plan another one at another date, which is a quick 101 on square foot gardening, and we'll get into more companion planting and a few more tricks and cheat sheets on how to plant per square.
Okay, thank you so much, Evelyn. And we want to be sure to encourage new gardeners to come up also, because it really is an easy way to start gardening. It's all done for you, and there are great instructions, and you only have a small space, so it's not that much to weed.
Exactly.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you.
We're here at Garden to Garnish today, an organic farm in Hanson, Massachusetts, with Tina Conte, the gardener in chief. And I'd love to ask you, Tina, what brought you to Hanson and this big farm you have here?
Well, I've always had a love for cooking, and I wanted to get closer and more intimate with the food, as you could say. So I started looking for a property that I could start to grow my own food and know where it was coming from, have more of a connection with it. And Hanson had, a great farming community. And we found this property by luck, and it, has been history in the making sense.
It certainly has. I remember the day I was reading South Shore, Edible South Shore, and I'm thumbing through the pages, and all of a sudden I see a new organic farm in Hanson. I have to find out who this is and what it is. So I remember running over here. I think the first time I came, it was about the cooking classes that you offer, and we've taken a couple really great cooking classes: Indian food, vegetarian food. Last time it was sort of a mix. So you're still doing that, right?
Yes, we are. We're doing private group classes. So typically we like people to get a group of 8 to 12 people and call, and we schedule it, and we take the menu kind of, however the people want to take it, whatever direction, but with local, sustainable teachings.
Yes.
Yeah.
And good food from your garden. Last class we took, we had a lot that you still had. Even though it was a class in February, you still had a lot of food left over from last year that we were eating. So you decided organic, and I know you've been learning and doing, and quite the outfit that you have here. Do you want to say a few words about pulling it all together?
Well, yeah, I want to know what's in my food, where it's coming from, the direction the food has been taking with pesticide use and commercial farming. I'm just trying to get back to the basics.
That's great. And right behind us, we have. Want to say a few words about what's going on here today? We're in mid-May. I'm sorry. The snow is finally gone. What's happening now in the garden?
Well, we're a little backed up because we had an extra long winter, and we seem to have skipped spring.
Exactly. It's 85 degrees today.
Yeah, so we're a little backed up on getting cleaned up, and we're waiting for dirt delivery. We just had the garden tilled. We'll have another dirt delivery, have it tilled again, and we're going to start putting up fencing today.
Great. And now I hear you also have, actually a friend of mine is part of the Community Supported Agriculture, so CSA. I don't think a lot of people know what CSAs are. Could you say a little bit about that?
Yes, I could. So community shared agriculture, or community supported agriculture, is when a group of people pre-buy vegetables for the summer. It's like they're buying a share of the farm. So people will give me money for a basket of goodies that starts mid-June and goes through mid-October. And it all depends on the season, too. Each week they'll come and get a basket. I like to throw extras in it, so I may do hot sauces or pestos, chicken, lamb. I try to keep it exciting and full circle. So you might actually get a basket and be able to cook a whole entire meal from that basket. If it has chicken, eggs, vegetables, grains. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get people really excited about cooking at home again.
That's fabulous. I didn't realize that you got everything in there. And so do you think you'll start in June this year?
Yeah, we're on schedule to start mid-June.
With what?
Well, we already have stuff growing in the garden. We have nettles, we have parsnips that we let overwinter, we have chives, I have lots of starts that we've started in the house. We have chickens left over from last year, from the end of the season. So we've got hot sauces that we've been working on fermenting through the winter, dried beans. So we have stuff to start.
Yeah, and let me remind the listeners that Tina is a great cook and has worked in a lot of restaurants. And so when you talk about having her hot sauce and things that she's made, it's what my experience has been that it's really good. So I want to take a look over to the bees over here. I see some lovely decorated beehives. Can you say anything about? Let's start with the decorations first.
Well, I'm the farmer, but my partner Jen likes things to be pretty. So as long as she gets to dress them up, I'm allowed to do whatever I want.
I love this. I have never seen such lovely decorated beehives, from the Red Sox to balloons, I think, a goat. And how about tell us a little bit about the bees?
Well, the bees, they have a multi-purpose. We're trying to keep them alive. Because we need bees to eat produce, and they're pollinating the garden. So we get higher yields just from having the bees here, plus we get to reap the benefits of the honey that we get to harvest at the end of the year. Last year we had 3 hives and got 75 pounds of honey.
75 pounds of honey. That's how many jars?
Well, if they're 1 pound jars, 75, but you could
Okay.
split them and do half-pound jars. It could be 150 jars. We sold out in 1 day.
Oh my gosh, you did.
Yes.
All right. Next year, let's find out the day and we'll be here. I just to go back to the CSA for a minute. So can you say a little bit about what it costs for someone to do a share?
Yes.
And about the volunteer part too?
Yes, we have a planting party, usually Memorial Day weekend. It starts Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. We usually squeeze in a farm dinner, either Sunday or Monday, and it's usually a dinner compiled of everything that we have raised or grown here. And the CSA baskets go for $1,000. This year we're only doing full shares, but next year we might do half shares because we put so much into them. Mm-hmm. It's not a typical farm share.
Right. And per week, so that's about 20 weeks, maybe about $50 of groceries or so?
Yeah. I think it ends up being 15 baskets.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. And I wanted to ask also about what you're going to do with the volunteers also. During the year, during the summer, do you have them back?
It's yes, it's open Sundays and Mondays. I am here all day working. Sundays is the day people pick up their CSA baskets, so I always welcome people to come and help. It's nice to know when the help is coming, so I have plans for stuff for them to do. But yeah, we can always use the help.
Okay.
There's never nothing to do here.
Exactly. And I think you said you're open for farm stands some days too, if people want to just come by and buy some things?
Yes, mostly Sundays.
Okay.
Most Sundays.
And do you want to say where this is?
Yes, at 321 East Washington Street, Hanson, Mass.
All right. And if you want to find out more, it's gardenstogarnish.org?
Gardentogarnish.com.
Gardentogarnish.com, and you're on Facebook also?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll probably take a little more look around the farm. I'd love to go look at the chickens, but let's move on there. Thanks.
Excellent.
So here we are in the chicken coop. Can you tell us a little bit what we're seeing in here, Tina?
Yeah, we have free-range chickens, so they've managed to make their home everywhere. The goats also reside in here, and what we have over here is the playpen for the goats. They love to jump and play. As old as they get, they are still very, very playful animals. They will sit up here and sunbathe. They'll jump and play King of the Mountain. They just love to jump on stuff.
And how many goats do you have? We saw the baby, Penelope, but I didn't see how many other goats you have.
5 adults and 1 baby.
And so what do you do with the goats?
We're milking right now, and actually, so we're hoping to get some goat cheese into the CSA baskets as well this year.
Another reason to do a CSA. Okay, and when do you get goat cheese? What time of year?
You can get it all year round. Once a goat has a baby, you can milk twice a day for 6 months to a year.
Okay, that sounds great. So what do we have over here? This is the actual chicken coop.
This is pig pen.
Pig pen. Okay, tell us more.
George and Harriet live over here, and for the winter in the summer they had just the dog house, but in the winter we decided to buy this shed so that they could have the dog house is inside, so it's like their bedroom, and then they can come out to a living room, and then they have the yard. So it kept them nice and cozy through the winter.
And where are they now?
They're in their house sleeping.
Okay, so that little spot in there. All right. Anything else we should talk about while we're out here? Where do the chickens go at night? They're on free ranging all over.
They will go into the back of the barn and sleep wherever they can find a spot.
Okay. Good. So we're out at the mushroom garden. I have never seen anything like this. I'm very excited to show you all and to have Tina talk about this. Tina, fill us in on what we're seeing, and if we can get in close.
Okay, so what we have here is we're growing shiitakes on logs. So it's plug spawn. You have to drill holes into the logs in a specific pattern, insert the plug spawn into the logs, and then you have to seal them with wax. This process takes a very long time, and it takes the mushrooms 6 months to 2 years to actually fruit. And right now they're in a fruiting stack. I've had them in a low stack, which is different from this, but when they start to fruit, this is the easiest way to harvest the shiitakes once they start to come out.
So it takes 6 months to 2 years. So how long have you been working on this one?
Almost a year to date.
Oh my gosh. And so you're seeing we get the film of 1 or 2 on the top, and there are a few more on the bottom, so you expect to see them all sprouting?
Yeah, I hope so. They really need to be watered, and learning curve. I did plant them a little too far away from a water source, so it's very hard for me to water them.
Okay, and we've had a dry spring the last little bit after the snow came out.
So you can
went
see
away.
Some of them are a little dry. They really just need to be watered, and then hopefully we'll see a lot more fruiting.
That is so amazing. I've never seen a mushroom farm before. So let's wrap up our segment with Tina here today. We're at Garden to Garnish in Hanson. If you want more info, you can go to gardentogarnish.com. Look on the Facebook page. And why don't we have you say your address again, Tina?
The address is 321 East Washington Street, Hanson, Mass.
And
let's not forget about the end of the season. We have the Fall Festival.
Yes.
The Fall Festival is a fun day. It's usually mid-October, and we post that on the Facebook page. It's for all to come. We have kids' activities, events. That's when we sell our honey. That's the one day we sold out last year because it's right after the honey harvest, which, by the way, we also invite people to come and participate in the honey harvest.
this is great. Such a treasure right here in my hometown. And I would say I'm going to mark that date on my calendar to get here. Maybe 6 a.m. or so, Tina?
Sounds good to me.
You heard it here. Okay. Thanks so much, Tina.
Thank you.
So that was fun to see those 2 places. And as promised, I said we would have a look at what else we can do for gardening and how everyone can do it. And we're here on my patio where we have a small little garden. You could even just take a little box at your home and put some soil in it. It's not that thick. It's only about 4 inches thick or so. And here we've planted what looks like a very lush garden. We have parsley, we have chives, onions, lettuce, and beside it we have this one tomato plant, which is actually the best looking tomato plant I have ever planted. It looks really great, and it's already showing some tomatoes on it. So what anyone can do is grab some soil, grab some seeds. A packet of seeds costs only about $1.50. You can plant them and just start to bear the fruits of your labor very quickly. So here I'll just zoom in so you can see. Here's parsley, so fresh, and behind it we have this great lettuce and these onions, which you can use the greens for some taste, but we'll be able to pick those onions in the end of the summer as the greens start to die off. And then the tomatoes, we probably have another month of waiting for those. So here's what I suggest. If you've never gardened before, grab a pot, grab a container, throw some dirt in it, plant the seeds, and just watch it grow. And then when you're all done, you get to eat.